Hello, everyone. Thank you guys for coming tonight. Whether you kind of already know about consulting and you came here to learn more, or you had no idea what it was until you got an email about this event, we're hoping that everyone who's here tonight will kind of walk away with a better understanding, or at least a little bit more knowledge about the world of consulting. My name is Hayden Duplechain. I am the career counselor for undergraduate supply chain and management majors, and I also help out with students who are interested in getting into consulting. I'm joined by Maria and Paul, who are both currently at Deloitte Consulting, and I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to them really quick to introduce themselves.
Thank you. I'll go first. Hi, everyone. For those that I haven't met, because I see a few familiar faces, my name is Maria Guerrero. I graduated from Bauer in 2018 with a double major in finance and supply chain, and I have been working with Deloitte Consulting ever since then. So it's been 2 years, a little bit over 2 years, and I am in the technology space, specifically in SAP implementations. So happy to be here and answer any questions you may have. And over to Paul.
Hello, my name is Paul Sarrapy. I also graduated from the University of Houston, Bauer. I only major in supply chain management. I joined Deloitte like 3 months ago, so I'm pretty fresh here. I'm just a little fishy now, but I also work. I'm working at the technology sector, but I'm doing Oracle instead of SAP for Maria. And also great to meet you guys.
Awesome, thank you guys. So we have some pre-planned questions that we're going to go ahead and run through. And if there's time at the end, we'll run through any questions that you guys might have. So if you have any questions come up kind of throughout the conversation, then please feel free to drop them in the chat, and we'll kind of come to them as they get sent in there at the end. All right, so if you could start off by talking a little bit more about your background and kind of how you ended up in consulting.
Well, I'm originally from Mexico. I was born and raised in Mexico. I moved to the US like sophomore year of high school. Then I went to college at UH, obviously. And from my business background, I have, for consulting, my older sister, she does consulting. So I already knew what was coming and what to be like expecting. So that helped a lot. Also, my dad has like a logistics business. That's why I went into supply chain. But other from there, I always wanted to do consulting because I'm a very hyperactive guy and I love moving around and doing different stuff all the time. So I thought consulting, and I was not wrong, that consulting was going to be the perfect job for me because every time it changes, like project to project is different. I'm going to meet new people, work with different clients, different industries. So I thought consulting was going to be a great fit for my personality. And I don't think I'm wrong so far.
That's good. I'm glad you're not disappointed, Paul. So I didn't know what consulting was when I started college. And when I found out about consulting, I thought they were too smart. I was like, well, there's no way they're going to choose me to work there. But then there was an opportunity for me to apply, and I feel like Deloitte was a very, very good company. So whenever I went to their interview, I realized like, yeah, I was competing with Ivy League students, but there was a lot of value that I could bring to the table based on my experience and based on my internships and the curriculum that I was learning. So, and I learned more about the industry of consulting as I went through the process of interviewing. And I really like it. Just like Paul, I didn't know what job or like what company I wanted to have or what title, but I knew the type of work that I wanted to be doing. I knew it was something that I was going to be able to solve problems, that was going to keep me on my toes, that I was going to be able to be challenged at work and not just sitting there and do data crunching. I knew I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life, or at least for the beginning of my career. So when I heard about consulting, what they do and how they go from one client to the other, I said, hey, I want to do that. I want to go from one company to the other, still working for the same company. So that's how my experience has been so far. It's been like I expected it, so that's good too.
So for anyone on the webinar today who maybe doesn't know too much about consulting other than, you know, what the name is and what it might mean, could you guys, in your own words, kind of describe what consulting is or what it is that you do?
Sure. I went to a panel with high school students, and they asked me to explain consulting to them. So the easiest way I thought about explaining consulting was, we are like the doctors for companies. So when you go to the doctor, it's either because you're sick already or because you're trying to prevent to get sick. So companies come to consultants just because they have a problem already and they want us to help us fix it, or they're trying to prevent a problem. So in the space of technology is more of, hey, we have an old system that is causing us issues, that our data is not matching when we're doing validations, or our executives are not able to make the best decisions because of the data that our reports are showing, or our system is too old that is not allowing us to do our operations, you know, efficiently. That's when they come to technology consultants and say, hey, how can we make this better? Or on the other hand, it could be something where like, hey, our system is working fine, but we want to do this new process, or we are expanding into this new area of our business, and the system that we have cannot handle that. That's when we come in and say, hey, we are able to help you expand, or the system you have is old. So there's multiple scenarios, right? But they come to us for solutions. And that's why being a problem solver and being able to work through challenges is important in consulting, because you don't know what the problem that your client is going to have. You don't know sometimes how to work through it, but that's when the team and everyone, all the subject matter experts, start thinking through like, hey, I've done this in the past, there's a new system that does this, how can we put all those things together, all the knowledge that we're building to make this solution and this program work for our clients. Hope that was a good explanation. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, honestly, I've never heard about the doctors one, and I thought that was amazing. You could not explain in a better way. So yeah, not a lot to add there.
Awesome. Yeah, I haven't either. So I think that's like a perfect way to describe that. That was awesome. Thank you.
Good.
So can you guys kind of go through maybe if there is such thing as a typical day, a typical work day for you guys? Maybe, you know, Maria kind of speaking on before all of this happened, and then now kind of how things have maybe changed with COVID and the pandemic.
Pre-COVID, it was traveling for me. It was traveling Monday through Thursday. I would fly out Monday morning or even Sunday night, and then come back home Thursday, even sometimes Friday morning. And you just go where the client is. In my case, I've traveled, or I had the opportunity to travel to Connecticut, to New York, to Dallas, and to Colorado, in Atlanta. So it was a good opportunity for me. And the day-to-day is and was, that hasn't really changed. A lot of meetings, right? A lot of meetings with your client, a lot of meetings internally with your team. Sometimes even one-on-ones with clients or one-on-ones with your team, because that's how we do our work. We talk to our clients, we gather the requirements, we gather what they want out of the system, and then we go and do it. So you have your alone time to do your work, but then you may have questions, so you may want to follow up on something. So that's when you have more meetings, right? Like the only way to walk through those things are and is with meetings. So before COVID, all these meetings were in person with the client at their office, and now they are virtually via Zoom or Teams or whatever platform the client is using. Paul, what's your day-to-day?
For me, I mean, I didn't get to travel sadly because of COVID, but at least yet, not yet. I'm really excited and I'm hoping that I can travel probably not far from now. But since I joined my past 3 months of experience so far, the only thing I can tell you is that I haven't had a week that has been the same so far. So it helps. It can be overwhelming sometimes, but it also helps me not getting bored or like got on into the routine of like doing the same thing over and over again, especially staying at home the whole time. So it kind of helps just to, keep moving, keep my brain going at all times. So I kind of like it. Like I said, I don't like doing the same thing over and over and over again. So it helps.
Can you tell me something that you really enjoy about your job, and then maybe like a challenge that you maybe didn't expect going into consulting, or one that you kind of knew going into consulting?
Yes. So what I enjoy, I know it sounds cliche, is the people. It's just everyone is really nice in here. I think obviously when you start out of college in an industry where you are supposed to be the subject matter expert to go and consult for companies, and you just graduated from college, so it's like, why do I really know? There's a lot of questions and it's confusing, and it's not like they'll put you in a baby project. No, they'll put you in a project like everyone else. So there's a lot of questions, a lot of like, hey, how do I know if I'm doing it right? How do I talk to the client? How do I answer this question? A lot of hows. And I think everyone that I've encountered that I ask a question and that I say, hey, I just don't know what I'm doing, or I don't know if I'm doing it right. Can you help me validate this? Can you help me understand it? Everyone has said yes, of course, and spend time with me to understand the process and understand not only what I'm doing right here, but how does that impact the big picture, the big project, and how is that going to help me later on in my career, which is something that I truly appreciate. And so it's the people that make the difference, because if my work environment wasn't a work environment with a team that I enjoyed, I wouldn't want to work here, because the work is not easy and the hours can be long sometimes. It depends on the week, it depends on the project, depends on a lot of different factors. But if you have a team that supports you, I think it makes a huge difference. When I used to travel, the idea of traveling and waking up at 4 a.m. in the mornings, or coming home like at 9 or 10 or 1 a.m. on Thursdays wasn't the best. But the idea of being there with my team in a different city where we could go it out together after a very long day of work, or just being with my team on site and solving the problems, that's what kept me going. And now that it's virtually, is that team that keeps me going when I'm at home and I'm like, oh my God, like, I don't know what I'm doing, and I don't have anyone else here to ask. So I go and talk to them. So it's the people that make a huge difference, and not only in client work, but outside of your client work, like initiatives or recruiting, like what we're doing here, being able to talk to Paul about anything, like, hey, how's your day going? Hey, did you hear about this? Or having that group of people that we started at the same time and we're all lost and like, hey, I don't know how to do this new training. Have you done it? No. And so like everyone supports each other at all levels. Or like managers, if you talk to a manager, like they're always very open to answer all the questions you have. So that's for sure what keeps me going and what I like about Deloitte. Challenges, there's been so many, and I still have them every day, right? Like they throw something at me like, hey, would you mind checking these, or you do this? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And then I'm like, oh gosh, how do I do this, right? So being able to solve problems and figure it out, like, hey, maybe I start this way, can I go this other route? What if I do this? And at some point, if you're very stuck, well, asking the right questions, right? but there's always a challenge and I personally like that. Maybe it's not for everyone, but I am challenge driven just because, like I said at the beginning, I didn't want to have a job where, hey, you're supposed to enter this piece of data for the next 6 months and let me know how it goes. No, I wanted something that kept me thinking, kept my mind going, like, well, I don't know how to do this. What else? How can we fix it? So
Like, I never expected to be able at like I have been here for 3 months, right? So I never expected that it was so easy to reach out and get a hold of a manager or like a director. Like, I will literally send a Skype message like, hey, I don't understand this. And they will take 15 minutes out of their time to jump in a Zoom call with me and explain me like step by step, like I'm a baby, and I love it. Like, for me, that's amazing that like I don't feel like any other industry does that. Like, it's literally an open door policy. Like, just be like, hey, are you free? And if they are, they'll help you. Also, what Maria said about the peers, like, I still talk to the analyst that I did the onboarding, Deloitte onboarding. We have our group chat. We have questions and we just drop it in there. And if someone knows, we help each other. We jump into some calls like, hey, can you help me set up this meeting? I don't know how to do it. Have you done it? And I was like, yeah, I have. So we help each other out a lot there. And I love that. I love that. It's not like in school that you have that competitive mindset. Like, hey, I want to help you, but I don't because we would like for a grade or for a case competition and stuff like that. That's a mindset that I love having now. It's like I can help anyone without feeling like the pressure of like my team is gonna hate me because I helped them. So
so
that's awesome.
competitive.
I mean, in school for like case competitions, I just felt like it was always like that. Like, people were like, I will ask someone like, hey, do you know how to, like, how did y'all do this? And they would tell me like, we don't know. And I'm like, yes, you do. Like, come on. But I mean, I get it. I want at some point, but that's something I love about Deloitte. It's the people. Even since when I was interviewing, they were so helpful. Like, I was not even part of Deloitte yet. And they were like, Maria and Ricardo were like reaching out like, hey, how do you feel about the interview? How was it? And they were treating us like we were already part of Deloitte. And for me, that was just amazing. I fell in love with the company in that instant.
And just to add a little bit, Paul, what's cool is something that you mentioned is that people, you still talk to the people like you did onboarding with. I still talk to them. Like we message each other on our personal phones, like, hey, how's your project going? Well, I don't know if this is gonna happen. Things like that. We go out for dinners. Well, maybe not right now, but we care about each other outside of professional environment, because these people become your friends at some point. If you start working with them so often, they become your family. Think about it, like you spend sometimes more time at work than or at least before, I don't know, right now it's like a mix of work and home, um but you spend a lot of time with them. So and if they leave the company, it's a network, right, that you're also taking with you. A lot of people that I met at the company left, or and then maybe they came back. So but they're building relationships somewhere else that maybe I can tap into if I need to, because they're part of my network, because I met them at Deloitte, and they're really smart people, so they get like really cool jobs like venture capitals and like banking, and like so they become part of your network. And then there's obviously a group that becomes part of like your close friends. So
Kind of a question that came up based off what you talked about, Maria. I feel like a lot of students that I meet with who are interested in consulting maybe just don't feel like they, going into what you said, like don't know enough. Like they aren't experts. They don't feel like they're experts at SAP or Oracle or whatever it is. And so they don't feel like that is an avenue. Consulting is an avenue in which that they could go down. What would you like say for a student like that who's maybe just doesn't necessarily feel empowered with their experiences, and Paul as well, with their experiences and going into that, knowing that you're not meant to know everything necessarily. They're going to help you in all that.
Can I start with this one, Maria?
mhm.
I'll put it very simply. When I joined Deloitte, I had no clue what Oracle was. Like, I had no idea what Oracle was. I knew of SAP because we used it at UH quite a bit. But Oracle, I was like, what is this? I was like, I got put into Oracle, like, what? So I started doing my own research and stuff like that. And I was freaking out. I started messaging Maria. I remember this like 2 months before joining. I was like, hey, how do I, like what do I do? Like, how do I get better at this? And Maria and Ricardo will always reply with enjoy your free time. Enjoy your free time, enjoy your vacation because you like have it now. And I was like kind of freaked out at first. I was like, come on, like please help me. Like I don't know anything. And then I understood once I was on an onboarding, Deloitte provides you everything you need in Oracle, like in your expertise, but also it helps to have the knowledge of Excel, PowerPoint, Microsoft, and everything extra obviously helps and will add on and will make your life easier. But as someone that joined the Oracle sector without knowing anything, I can tell you they will let you know. They will teach you what you have to know. And that's something I loved, obviously.
Yeah, I agree 100% with Paul. I think the expectation isn't for you to not to know anything. I mean, it's just for you to have the energy and the mindset, the curiosity to ask questions when you're here, to learn fast, to be able to, hey, if you need to spend extra hours out of your time after work, to learn that's something that your client is doing and you still don't get or can wrap your mind around it. Hey, you might need to spend them. And I did it. And I know, Paul, I told you when you asked me for advice, I told you the exact same thing. And I hope you did it. But it's just part of the process, right? The expectation when you graduate from college in consulting, and especially at Deloitte, is not for you to be an expert in whether it's technology or supply chain or human capital or whatever area they're putting you in. Is for you to be able to learn, because they're going to give you all the tools for you to become an expert, but how fast you become an expert or how well you use those resources is up to you. So that's the only expectation I have. So if you feel like I just don't know if I qualify for consulting, or I just don't know if I could work in consulting because I don't know what I would tell the clients, don't worry about that. I think part of the cool experience of consulting is that you get to work with different clients, so your knowledge is not only in one industry. It's gonna be in different industries with different clients, and it's not like small clients. We're talking about like Fortune 500 companies. All the companies that you probably shop from, we work from them. All the companies that probably help us be having these conversations right now, we work with them. So anything and everything that you probably interact in your daily life, there's a piece that Deloitte Consulting has touched and that we've helped them be better. And that's something that I'm proud to say. I'm proud to say, like, hey, maybe the car that you're driving, I'm helping maybe one of those companies, or I'm helping maybe one of the social media companies. Like something so simple, but it's so big in the background, and we are part of that. And you don't have to be an expert to work in these things. All you have to do is be able, have the energy and the mindset of being challenged and ask the right questions. So don't be shy and don't be afraid of consulting like I was.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. So can you guys talk a little bit about the role of case interviews that they play in the interview process, and then maybe some techniques that you use to study for the case interview?
Paul, looks like you want to answer this one.
Oh no! I had a horrible time with the case interviews, like horrible time. It was my first time ever doing a case interview, and on the first round of interviews, I got destroyed. Like I just remember, I still dream about it. I have like nightmares about it because I was going through the whole process, and the guy just stopped me in the middle of it. He was like, "Hey man, stop!" And I was like, just sitting there like, "What?" He was like, "You're all over the place, like you had the right idea, but you were all over the place." And I started freaking out. I was like, "I'm not gonna make it. Like that's it." And then I got the call for the second one, so that's when I started like actually I was like, okay, I have my experience now, so I started preparing. But something that helped me a lot was a book called Case in Point, and it was amazing. Like an amazing book. They will break down kind of like how a case interview works, but it's just so different. Like what I did, it was a technology one. So I know Deloitte offers a lot of examples in their page, and I studied them so much that night. But you, it's like a box of chocolates, man. You just never know what you're gonna get. They can just, throw something at you, and you're like, I don't know. So and they always tell you like there's not a right answer. They just want to think. They just want to know how you think, how you process like information, how you settle down and stuff like that. But for me, it was just a horrible experience.
It wasn't, for me, it wasn't the best either. And I think that's something that I know we are trying to change, just because I was given a 24-hour notice for my interview, but it was just because of how things were back then. So that's not gonna happen anymore, guys. So if you apply with Deloitte Consulting now, we'll give you a heads up, like a week or whatever in advance, just so you prepare. But I did 2 case interviews as well. The first one, they also stopped me. What is this, Paul? They also told me to stop talking because I was all over the place, and I think I was very nervous just because it was my first case interview ever, and I think I don't know, it was, my thoughts were all over the place, and I was trying to do math, and they didn't give me a calculator, so I was like doing decimals, and my math was all wrong. So yeah, it was all embarrassing. But the second one went better. So I think that gave me a lesson that I should have done a practice case interview with anyone, before my first one, just so I at least knew how to like structure my thoughts, how to present myself, present my problem statement, address what they were saying me properly, instead of just like, I think you said this, but this and this and this. And so my second one was way better. And I think practice is what makes perfection. So if you have the opportunity to practice a case interview, which is different from a case study, do it. It's important, just because I know more and more companies are moving into case interviewing, and it's not only consulting and it's not only Deloitte, because it's a very good way to actually get to know you better and get to know how you think. Why? Because they'll give you a problem, right? And part of what Paul was saying is that he read a book and then his case was completely different, is because you have to ask, okay, what type of case are you gonna give me? Because they can, and it's fine if you don't ask. It's actually supposed to be our job to tell you. But if you ask, if it's not, if we, or any chance we miss it, well, ask, because it changes. If I give you a supply chain problem, it's gonna be very different than a technology problem. And it's gonna be very different than a mergers and acquisition problem. So you wanna prepare for what type of problem they're presenting you. And the way you approach it, it can be a little bit different, but I think it all goes back to the basics, right? Like if they give you a problem, well, and they give you facts, well, you want to go back and ask, like, hey, these are the facts, did I understand them right? You want to confirm that what you heard is what you heard and not what you thought you heard. And the problem that they actually have is what you have in your paper, or what you heard, what you wrote down. And then you start slicing, right, the data they gave you and the problem little by little, not all at once, and asking questions, just because that is what we want to see. That's what they want to see, how you ask questions, how they give you something that you don't know how to solve. How do you manage around it? How do you ask those questions that will give you more information, and you'll put together something that actually makes sense? Because that's exactly what we do every day, right? They might not give us the entire problem at once, but we are part of a big project, and they give us a piece to own, and they say, hey, this is your piece, own it, and you might not know what to do. So how do you ask those questions, right? How do you go into a project that you don't know a lot about and manage yourself with the client? They understand what the client is telling you, acknowledge that, and then ask follow-up questions. So it's just that basic interaction with a client, that basic interaction with someone like, hey, I heard you, you're telling me this. Okay, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think? So it's a conversation at the end of the day, which is what we do every day.
And just a heads up, there's someone reading the case to you. Like they are reading the case to you, and right after that, you have like 15 to 20 minutes to come up with an answer. Like it's not like a case competition that they send you an email with a problem, and then you go back and come back with an answer. No, it's you're sitting in front of them with your little pen and paper, and you're like already excited because you like studied so much and you're trying to kill it, and then they hit you with that, and you have 15 minutes to ask questions, try to get your thoughts together, and then go like for it. But I'm telling you, for me, it was horrible. It was a horrible experience, but I learned a lot. I definitely learned a lot from that.
So kind of going along with that, I know a lot of students just get stressed. I have a lot of students come to me kind of the week before, like, oh no, I just got an interview with Deloitte or with whoever. I've never done a case interview before. What do I do? And I think they get very nervous about that situation because they don't feel like, what I always tell them is that they're not there to like ruin your life and make you mess up and everything. So kind of going along with what you both said is, you know, they kind of stopped you and kind of reset you to help you get to where you wanted to go. So can you just talk a little bit about how, like, because that's the biggest thing that I get is they're just so stressed. And I tell them, you know, if you're doing these things right and talking through what you're going through, they'll let you know. They might stop you, might be awkward, but they want you to do well. They want you to, you know, work through the case and do a good job. They're not there to, like I said, trick you and make you get it wrong and look whatever type of way.
I think active listening matters a lot because you're very nervous. It depends. I mean, they not always let you use a calculator. I don't think they do it in most of them.
I didn't have to like use one. Mine was completely like I was ready to add numbers and stuff like that, and mine was not math related at all. It was so simple that when I was like explaining it back to him, I tried to come up with like ideas and go like out of the box and stuff like that. And I think that's when he stopped me. He was like, look, man, you have the right idea, but you're just overthinking it. And I was like trying to sound so smart and stuff like that. And he was like, look, this is the problem. You had this. And like, he actually sat down with me and broke it down for me. And I was like, after he said all of it, I just looked at me and like inside of me, I was just thinking like, oh my God, like you're so dumb, Paul. Like you had it all the time. It was so simple. And you were just going and going and going. So I would just say, don't freak out because I was trying to go overboard and they just want to know how will you fix it. They obviously don't expect you to like know everything and be an expert. So they just want to know how you think, I guess. It's just like the way you think, the way you present yourself. Because he mentioned something in the first interview. He's like, I noticed English is not your first language. And I was like, yeah. So he gave me some pointers about communicating and like hand movement and words and stuff like that. So I think they actually care a lot about that because at the end of the day, you're talking to clients and it's going to be, so they look at all that kind of stuff. So just, you know, be sure for that.
But I like what you said, Paul. Don't overthink it. There's sometimes the problem is so simple, like, okay, but here's the thing, they'll give you a lot of information because that's sometimes how it is. They'll give you a lot of information, but the core of the problem can be very simple. So they'll give you like, you know, I'm a supermarket with 1,000 employees and 4 different countries, and I do operations, you know, in Asia Pacific and this and that, and we ship 20 tons of like products and we have 5 different categories. Like, okay, well, you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna need all this information. And at the end they throw you with like, okay, we're trying to expand into our digital area. How would you build an app? So it's like, well, I don't know. You just told me you have all this information. How do I build an app? Well, how do I put this information in an app? So don't overthink it, right? Like go back to the question, go back to the core. And like I said, active listening, because like Paul was saying, right? The guy was like giving him cues and was telling him like, okay, well, we just talked about this. And that's what they did to me. Maybe I would ask a question and he would ask a question back. Well, think about like, well, why is he asking me a question back? Well, maybe he's trying to tell you something. He's telling you like, hey, maybe you want to go in that direction. Maybe you want to ask more about that. So just be actively listening, and not because you're nervous, like disregard what he said. So I was telling you about this other question, like no, actually pay attention to what the person is telling you, because that matters.
That's definitely what I tell them. If they say they don't have data on that, or if they do it, I was like, this probably means that's not the way to go. Pay attention to the context clues and listen to where they're guiding you. We did have a question that kind of went along with my next question for you guys. They asked, it was from Maria, asking if your finance or supply chain, major has helped you more. But my question is kind of, do you think there's a specific major that if they're interested in consulting, they should go to? Does it matter? I'd love your feedback on that.
No and yes. No, there's no major. I think all majors are fairly good for consulting because we look for different backgrounds, so we can bring different perspectives into the table because we have different challenges from our clients. But what I think matters is the experience that you might bring to the table, right? And that can come from different sources. It can come from case competitions. It can come from your class projects, internships, part-time jobs, and the way you sell that, right? The way you talk about that experience. In terms of majors, the only two things that I would say is sometimes accounting majors, sometimes I've seen where they see an accounting major and they think maybe they got confused with Deloitte accounting. So just having something in there where you maybe your experience is diversified and you show like, hey, yes, I'm accounting because I love accounting, but my experience is diversified. It can show a lot that like, hey, yeah, I'm accounting, but I'm not only accounting. And the other thing is just the world is moving really fast. In consulting companies, not only Deloitte, we move where our clients go. And I say this because our clients are moving a lot with technology. So you don't need an MIS major to be involved with technology. And that's something that I want to point out. There's a lot of resources out there for you to get more involved, or at least be up to speed with the trends that Fortune 500 companies are doing in terms of technology. Regardless of where you go, right? If you are interviewing with a company, maybe you Google in the news the name of the company, and I'm gonna put Deloitte as an example. And you see they're doing this huge technology implementation, or they're building this huge database for a campus that they have in Dallas. That is technology related, and you want to be part of that because that's where the future is going in any area: supply chain, finance, accounting. Everything is going towards that area. So if you can get just more involved with technology or understand, I think that's good as well.
Awesome, thank you. And that kind of segues perfectly into my next question about, if you're looking at a stack of resumes or talking to students who are interested in consulting, what are some things that you might be looking for on the resume? What are some key things that maybe they could be doing right now to get past that first round and make it to the interview?
It's a good question because I think it depends on each person, right? We're not always looking for the 4.0s with zero experience or the 2.5s with a bunch of experience. I think it's a good mix, but
I was not a 4.0. if that
I
helps.
wasn't either.
I was an A and B student. I had one C,
Same.
if that helps, but I was not perfect. I had part-time jobs, so and I live in Katy, so I have to travel back and forth to UH. But I don't know. For me, I think what did it for me is that I'm a people's person. I'm very good with people. I love talking to people. I would I made the interviewer laugh quite a bit. So I think he liked me. But I mean, either from that, I don't know. Maybe Maria has a better insight on it, but I really don't know.
I think experience is one, right? And like I said, when they tell you like a recruiter looks at your resume for, I'm going to be generous and tell you a minute. It's a long time. So when you look at your resume, what is the story that you're trying to tell me? And it's hard, right? Because it's like, well, I don't know. I'm putting my major, my GPA, and my experience and which organization I'm involved. What do you mean story? There is a story behind it. When I look at it and I say, okay, Paul Sarrapy, supply chain major, 3.7.
I wish.
He had this experience, this experience, and this other experience, and he's been involved like in this organization. What is the story behind that, right? What is the story of Paul being a supply chain student with a part-time job, but also being involved in student organizations and using his summers to do internships? Like, what is the story behind it? And it doesn't have to be like super complicated, so don't try to overthink it, but just think of like, what do I want the person who's looking at my resume to get out of it in the 30 seconds to a minute that they look at it? And when they're comparing your resume to someone else's, what is that something or those something that make your resume say, that aha moment, like, oh, interesting. So think about that. And if you feel like, well, I don't know and I don't have that, there's always so many opportunities out there to put that in your resume. And it can come from projects, it can come from outside of U of H. UH has a lot of experiences, but if there's something that doesn't have, well, go outside of it and look for it, right? So that's what I think, what we're looking for.
So this one's pretty easy. If someone's interested, how do they get their foot in the door?
It's important, and like, for instance, I'll say something. I appreciate everyone who has their camera on because I put a face to your name. So next time that I see you, I'm gonna know like, hey, I know Jose. Oh, I've seen Sam before. Oh, hey, that's David. So it's different because we are in a virtual environment and it's harder. I'm not gonna lie, it's harder to make a connection with someone. Because if he was a face-to-face, maybe Jose would have been here earlier and like, oh, me and Jose were chatting about it and like, hey, Jose, have you met Paul? Oh yeah, this and that. But right now, well, we can't really do that, right? So I go and look at the questions and I answer things here and there. So it's a little bit harder. So being here, having your camera on, doing all these little extra things, it matters and it's important. So how do you get your foot in the door? It's little by little, building those connections with everyone, with Paul, with me, with other people that come to the events, and just preparing yourself, right? So like right now, we mainly have full-time opportunities. So let's say you are a sophomore, let's say you're a junior, or even a first semester senior, or something like that, that you're saying like, I'm gonna wait to apply because it's not my time yet. Use that time to build your skills and build your resume and prepare yourself, because that's also part of the process to get your foot in the door. That whenever your chance is there, your opportunity is there, you are ready to take it. You're not like, oh man, I should have put, or oh, I don't have my resume ready, or like, oh, I forgot the deadline to the application. Like, no, you are ready to do it, because like you've been working through the semesters to have a good GPA, to have good internships, to have good experience, to have good, you know, case competitions or whatever, be involved in organizations or volunteer outside of UH, like little things that say, huh, remember? So you are ready when the opportunity arises, and throughout that time, you're also been building those connections. So when the opportunity is there for you, you're not like, oh, hi, I'm a stranger. Not like, hey, hi, I've met you before. So that's my advice.
Yeah, talking about the skills, um, for me, like one summer I was not able to land an internship. I had one before, like the summer before, but one I didn't. So I was thinking like how I knew I wanted consulting, right? Like just thinking around, I always knew I wanted this. So I was like, how can I better myself at it? So I got a job at a clothing, I was answering a question in the chat. So I knew consulting involved a lot of people skills, talking to different people all the time. So I was like, I'm gonna get a job at a clothing company that I'm gonna, talk to someone different every hour. And that's what I did, and I got pretty good at talking to people, like starting conversations, even if it was like, hey, how's your day going, or like, it's crazy out there, right? Like, do you have the small talk helps. And also when I was saying about like school, like to the people skills in school, I was never afraid to be the guy to raise my hand and answer a question. If I knew the answer, I will raise my hand and answer the question. If I didn't, obviously I didn't. But also when you have the team presentations, I was never afraid to stand there and like be the first one to talk or like present my team. I always try to make it funny and engagement, try to make a joke there, here and there, so people will be engaged. But it also helped me being better, because I was so bad at talking to people, like so bad at like in front of people. I will get all red and get like these red spots in my neck and stuff like that. And I will sometimes remember in high school, I would forget English. Like my English would just go blank. And I was like, oh my God, now what? So I'll be like just sitting there like, speaking Spanish to other people. But to be honest, I just put myself in that situation. Like, I'm going to present more. I'm going to practice more. I'm going to go work at place for a minimum pay just to get better at something that is going to help me later on in a future job.
Totally agree with Paul. I like talking, but I was always very self-conscious of my accent, all through college, until I was part of the TVLCP program, and the person that was running it, I had a presentation for the program, and we were practicing, and I told him, like, I just don't want to do it. I feel like my accent gets on the way of my point. Like, people don't get me because they're focusing on my accent. And he told me, like, nobody actually cares about your accent. If what you're saying, it's engaging, and what you're saying in the content and in the value that you're bringing with your presentation, it's actually good, which you should practice to get there, right? Nobody really cares about your accent. And I don't know why, until he said that, it didn't click. So I went and I did my presentations. And then after that, I know I still have it. I don't hear my own accent anymore. I know I have it, but I try. And if I forget a word, just like Paul, I'm just like, well, I'll explain you what I'm trying to say, right? Like, if I don't know how to say cell phone, which that doesn't happen, I'm just giving an example. I'll tell you, well, that little device that you use to text and give likes on social media, well, I'm talking about a cell phone. So it's part of as well of your development, right? Personal and professional. And I think having, like Paul said, taking advantage of those opportunities that college and Bauer gives you, to raise your hand and say, like, hey, yes, I want to be uncomfortable and go do a presentation. Like, who does that, right? Like, no, I don't want to be that person.
I hated it.
But you should. And you should take advantage of that, because now is the time to use your I'm a student card, and I can make mistakes, and it doesn't cost the company millions of dollars. It just costs, I can embarrass myself maybe. But it's okay, because that's mean, that's what college is about. And I hope that you guys take advantage as many opportunities as you have to talk to people, to practice presentation skills, because one thing that my husband always tells me, because he's an engineer, you know how they always say like engineers cannot talk to people and they're always like, you know, numbers. He is the total opposite. He knows how to talk to people even better than me and a lot of business students that I've seen. And something he told me was like, well, it doesn't matter how good I am of an engineer or how amazing an idea is in my head if I cannot sell it to someone, if I cannot deliver that value to someone. So just think about that. It doesn't matter how good you think, you know, like all this knowledge is happening, or, you know, my resume is amazing. If you can't deliver that story of yourself, or if you can't, you know, engage in a conversation, because that's what consulting is. But if you really think about it, there's a lot of companies and a lot of jobs in business in general that will require that type of skill as well, and presentations and all that, especially if you want to like move up in companies. So
And I'm not sure if you guys are able to answer this, but someone asked if what is a cool company that you've worked for? Are you able to, you know, no?
no, but I was actually typing the answer to Amanda's question. No, I can't give you the exact name. But I'll tell you some of our clients in general that are public, that we work with them, you know, Google, Facebook, Amazon. So in some of, do we get perks from working in those companies? It depends on the company, not always, but I know some companies do give perks. There's technology companies that we work with that they've given out like discounts, or they've given out products like, hey, you know, like here's a free product, just because. So perks as in I was an employee from them, you know, like if I was working for Apple and I get like a 35% discount for working for Apple, not like that, but there is certain perks that we get to work for companies.
Awesome, thank you, cool. So we're kind of reaching that hour mark. So if each of you could maybe give one last piece of advice for any student who is maybe on the fence or really interested in getting into the world of consulting.
Don't be shy. Just don't be scared to talk to people. Don't be shy. We're all human inside. We've been in your shoes not too long ago, actually, so we know what it feels to be there. And don't be scared to be rejected. Like I said it on the HBSA meeting, but before Deloitte, I got rejected so many times, like so many times. I remember it was like 134 rejection letters that I got, and I finally landed the one at Deloitte. And Deloitte was the only one that I never thought I was gonna get, and I did, because all the other ones were like smaller companies and stuff like that. So just don't beat yourself up, because I did a lot. And I know that stress that can bring to like students when you keep getting those no thank yous. I still got one like a couple months ago. Like I already signed with a Deloitte, and it was actually Accenture. They like sent me one like, hey, thank you. And I was like what? I already have a job. Like, like thanks. So it's just like don't beat yourself up. You know, if you keep getting those no's, just keep working hard, keep developing new skills. There's always space for improvement. And I know as students it can be hard, because getting those no's really is like beating you up. But just, you know, keep going, work hard, and apply and talk to people, reach out. LinkedIn is a powerful tool. We use it.
I like what you said, Paul, because I got a lot of rejection too. I mean, the amount of companies that rejected me, I lost track. But I remember my first one. I was actually in the office of my student organization. I was part of Bauer Women's Society, and I had this huge interview with, well, no, it wasn't a huge interview, but I had an interview with Target, and everything was going great. And because of my accent, he was able to pick up that I was from Latin America. So he asked me, like, where are you from? And I said, Mexico. And then he said, like, you know, are you an international student then? And I said, yes. I am. So then he stopped the interview right there. He said, hey, sorry, but we cannot hire international students. So I really appreciate you taking the time, blah, blah, blah. And then the interview ended. And it was heartbreaking because it was my first one. I was, I think, like a freshman or a sophomore. And I was crying in the office. And then I was like, well, why am I crying? It's just one company out of millions of companies out there in here that I can apply to. So then I just went crazy and applied to all of them. But I think it's not only applying for it. And I think this is going to be my advice. It's not only applying for a job, it's what are you bringing to that application, right? Like it's like one resume for everything. And I think I'm going to qualify for all of them. Well, not necessarily. And if you think that, well, I hope you have a lot of internships and experience that you say, like, name it, I have it. But if you don't, then start thinking, right? More of like, where do you want to go? I knew I wanted to do supply chain at the beginning, so I started looking for more supply chain internships. I didn't get what I wanted, but eventually I got there and I got the experience that I needed and I wanted, but it took a lot of applications. It took a lot of me going out there and getting maybe sometimes not internships with Fortune 500s, but with smaller companies for me to build that knowledge and start bringing something to the table for the bigger companies. It's like you fish the small fish so you can then use it as bait for the bigger. I know that sounds so bad, but it's just experience that you, I would like to emphasize that and to not, like Paul said, not be afraid of rejection, because you're gonna get rejection in your career no matter what.
I love that fish analogy. That's perfect. I think that's awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for donating an hour of your time to talk to our students. If your question, I think we answered all the questions, but if you have any follow-up questions, I would, like Paul said, LinkedIn's a powerful tool. So follow up with them, connect with them, build those relationships and things like that. So thank you guys again so much for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
No, thank you for having us.